He makes you feel guilty for everything. That's gaslighting. If you've ever walked away from a conversation feeling like everything was your fault, even when it didn't start that way, this is for you. Because gaslighting doesn't begin with lies. It begins with a simple shift. You feel something is wrong, but somehow you end up apologizing. You remember something clearly, but you start questioning if it really happened like that. You try to express how you feel and leave the conversation feeling guilty for even bringing it up. And the most dangerous part is this: it doesn't feel like manipulation. It feels like you're too emotional, too sensitive, too difficult. So instead of questioning what's happening, you start questioning yourself. You rethink everything. You replay conversations. You analyze your tone, your words, your reactions, trying to find where you went wrong. And slowly, something changes. You stop trusting your own mind. You feel things, but you don't trust them. You think things, but you doubt them. You react and immediately regret it. And now, you're not just in a relationship, you're in a constant state of self-doubt. That's what gaslighting does. It doesn't control you directly. It changes the way you see yourself until you start doing the work for it. So, pay attention, because the signs you're about to see don't look obvious. They feel like confusion, and that's exactly why they work. It happens faster than you realize. You're in the middle of a conversation. Something doesn't feel right. You try to express it, and somehow you end up saying, "I'm sorry," not because you clearly did something wrong, but because the situation shifted in a way you didn't expect. You brought up a concern, and now you're the one explaining yourself. You reacted to something, and now you're the one calming things down. You felt hurt, and now you're the one fixing the tension. And after a while, it becomes automatic. You apologize to keep the peace. You apologize to avoid escalation. You apologize before things even get worse. And at first, it feels like control, like you're managing the situation, like you're being the bigger person. But look deeper. Are you resolving anything? Or are you just taking responsibility for what isn't yours? Because this is where the pattern forms. You start associating discomfort with your fault. If something feels off, it must be you. If there's tension, you must have caused it. If the conversation turns negative, you must fix it. And that changes your role completely. You stop expressing freely. You start softening your words. You begin conversations already prepared to take the blame. Not because it's true, but because it feels easier. And that's how gaslighting works. It doesn't tell you directly that you're wrong. It makes you feel like you are, through small shifts, through subtle reactions, through moments that leave you just uncertain enough to doubt yourself. And the more you apologize, the more you reinforce that belief, until one day, it's no longer a reaction. It's who you became inside the relationship. At some point, something strange begins to happen. You remember things clearly, a conversation, a message, the way something was said. But when you bring it up, the response is immediate. That's not what happened. You're remembering it wrong. You always twist things. And at first, you push back. You explain what you remember, you try to clarify, you try to make sense of the difference. But the more you do that, the more the situation shifts. Now it's not about what happened anymore. It's about whether you're reliable. And that's where the doubt begins. Because you were sure. But now, you're hesitating. You replay the moment in your head. You question the details. You wonder if maybe you misunderstood something, and this doesn't happen once, it repeats. Small corrections, different versions, subtle contradictions, until something changes. You stop trusting your memory the way you used to. You start saying things like, "Maybe I'm wrong. I might be mixing things up. I'm not sure anymore." And that's the shift. Because once you doubt your memory, you lose your reference point. You can't fully trust what you experienced. You can't stand firmly on what you remember. You start relying on their version more than your own. And that's where gaslighting deepens, not by erasing reality, but by weakening your confidence in it. Because if you're not sure what's true, you become easier to influence, easier to correct, easier to redirect, easier to make feel wrong. And over time, that uncertainty becomes exhausting. You think more, you question more, you rely less on yourself. And that's exactly how the dynamic holds. Not through control, but through doubt. At some point, you notice how much you've started explaining. Not just important things, everything. Where you were, what you meant, why you said something a certain way. Things that used to be simple now require context, details, clarification, proof that your intentions were good. And you don't even wait to be asked. You explain in advance. You add extra information. You justify your actions before they can be questioned. Because you've learned something, if you don't explain enough, it might turn into a problem, so you try to prevent that. You think ahead. You structure what you say. You choose your words carefully to avoid being misunderstood. But here's what's really happening. You're not communicating. You're defending. Defending your intentions, your actions, your perspective, even when there's no clear accusation. And that's exhausting, because now every interaction carries weight. You can't just say something and move on. You have to make sure it's clear enough, safe enough, correct enough. And over time, this changes how you show up. You become more cautious, more calculated, more focused on not being misunderstood than on being yourself. And the most important part is this. You start believing that this is normal, that relationships require this level of explanation, that you need to justify yourself to be understood. But you don't. You don't need to prove your intentions constantly. You don't need to explain every detail of your behavior. You don't need to defend your reality just to be accepted. Because when you feel like you have to explain everything, you're not being heard. You're being questioned. And that's not communication. That's a dynamic where you're always trying to prove that you're not the problem. At some point, it stops being about specific situations. It becomes something constant, a feeling that no matter what happens, somehow it always leads back to you. You say something, it turns into you being too much. You react to something, it becomes you overreacting. You try to explain yourself, and it ends with you being the issue. And after a while, you stop questioning it. You start expecting it. You go into conversations already thinking, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I shouldn't say this. Maybe I'm making a bigger deal than it is. And that's where it settles, not in what he says, but in what you start believing, because now you don't need someone to tell you you're the problem. You already feel like you are, and that changes your behavior. You hold back more. You doubt your reactions. You minimize what you feel before even expressing it, because part of you is already assuming, this might be my fault. And that's what makes this so powerful. It doesn't come from confrontation. It comes from conditioning, from repeated moments where things get turned around, where your feelings get questioned, where your reactions get reframed, until one day, it becomes automatic. You stop trusting your instincts. You stop validating your emotions. You stop standing firmly in what you feel, because now, your default is doubt. And living like that is exhausting. Because you're not just dealing with the relationship, you're dealing with yourself, constantly checking, constantly adjusting, constantly trying to make sure you're not the problem. Even when deep down something tells you you're not, at some point, something deeper starts to fade. Not your thoughts, your trust in them. You feel something, but you hesitate. Is this valid? Am I overreacting? Should I even feel this way? And instead of trusting your emotions, you start analyzing them. You try to measure if they make sense. You try to justify them before expressing them. You look for reasons to confirm if what you feel is right. And that's the shift. Because your feelings used to be clear. You felt something, and that was enough. Now, you feel something, and immediately question it. And over time, that creates distance. You become less connected to yourself, less certain about your reactions, less confident in your emotional responses. You start needing validation, not just from others, but from the situation itself. You wait for proof before trusting what you feel. You wait for confirmation before reacting. You wait instead of responding naturally, and that changes your entire internal experience. Because now, you're not just feeling, you're monitoring your feelings, trying to make sure they're appropriate, trying to make sure they're not too much, trying to make sure they won't be turned against you. And that's exhausting, because emotions are not supposed to be negotiated. They're supposed to be felt. But when you lose confidence in them, you lose your internal guide. You stop knowing what's okay. You stop knowing what's too much. You stop knowing where your limits are. And that's where gaslighting reaches its deepest point. Not when you believe him. When you stop believing yourself, this is where everything becomes harder to see. Because there's no clear event. No obvious moment you can point to. No single situation that explains how you feel. And yet, you feel it. A constant confusion. You walk away from conversations feeling unsettled. You try to think about what happened, and it doesn't fully make sense. You replay things in your head, but you can't clearly define what was wrong. And that's what keeps you stuck. Because if you can't explain it, you start questioning if it's even real. You tell yourself, maybe I'm overthinking. Maybe I'm just emotional. Maybe it's not that serious. But the feeling doesn't go away. It stays. Quiet, but persistent. And it shows up in small moments. When you hesitate before speaking. When you rethink what you felt. When you feel relief. Just because there was no tension for a while? And that relief says a lot. Because peace should be normal. Not something you notice only when conflict disappears. But in this dynamic, clarity is missing. Things don't fully resolve. Conversations don't feel complete. You don't leave with understanding. You leave with doubt. And that creates a mental fog. You think more, but understand less. You analyze more, but feel less certain. You try harder, but feel more confused. And that's not accidental, because confusion keeps you from acting. If you're not sure what's wrong, you don't know what to do, so you stay. Trying to figure it out. Trying to make sense of something that was designed to feel unclear. And that's the trap. Not control, not confrontation, confusion. At this point, it's not just about what he says anymore. It's about what you started believing. Because gaslighting doesn't work by changing reality. It works by changing your trust in yourself. You don't follow his version because it's stronger. You follow it because yours feels weaker. Because after enough doubt, enough confusion, enough moments where you felt wrong, you start stepping back from your own perception. You stop standing firmly in what you feel. You stop trusting what you remember. You stop validating your own reactions. And that's where the real shift happens. You don't need to be convinced anymore. You already question yourself, and that's what keeps you stuck. Not the person, not the relationship, but the version of you that no longer fully trusts herself. Because when you don't trust yourself, you hesitate. You analyze more. You wait longer. You give more chances, even when something feels off. And that hesitation is what keeps the dynamic going. Because clarity leads to action. But doubt keeps you in place. So now the question is not just, what is he doing? It's, what did I start believing about myself because of this? Because that answer is what's holding everything together. Everything starts to shift the moment you stop asking if your feelings are valid and start trusting that they are. Because right now, you've been trained to question yourself, to pause before reacting, to analyze before feeling, to look for confirmation before trusting what you already sensed. And that's what disconnected you from your own perception. So rebuilding doesn't start outside. It starts here, with something simple but powerful. If something feels wrong, acknowledge it. Not immediately explain it. Not justify it. Not minimize it. Just recognize it. I felt uncomfortable. That didn't sit right with me. Something about that feels off. And leave it there. Because your perception doesn't need permission to exist. It doesn't need to be approved. It doesn't need to be validated by someone else to be real. And at first, this feels uncomfortable. Because you're used to questioning yourself. You're used to needing certainty, to needing proof, to needing to make sure you're not wrong. But perception doesn't work like that. It's immediate. It's instinctive. It's your internal signal telling you something matters. And the more you ignore it, the weaker it becomes. So now you start doing the opposite. You listen. Even if you don't fully understand. Even if you can't explain it perfectly. Even if it feels unclear. Because clarity doesn't come first. Trust does. And once you start trusting your perception again, something shifts. You stop needing constant confirmation. You stop doubting every reaction. You stop giving your power away to someone else's version of reality. And that's where your stability begins to return. Not when everything makes sense, but when you stop questioning yourself every time something feels off. You don't need to apologize for existing, but somewhere along the way, it started to feel like you do. You apologize for your tone, for your reaction, for bringing something up, for feeling something. That made someone else uncomfortable. And it happens so naturally, you don't even notice it anymore. I'm sorry, I didn't mean it like that. I'm sorry, maybe I'm overthinking. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said anything. And every time you say it, you're doing something deeper than ending a conversation. You're taking responsibility for something that may not be yours, because in this dynamic, apologizing became a way to restore balance, to calm things down, to avoid escalation, to move past tension quickly. But there's a cost, because the more you apologize, the more you reinforce the idea that you are the problem, that your feelings are too much, that your reactions are wrong, that your presence needs to be adjusted, and over time, that shapes how you see yourself. You become more cautious, more self-critical, more focused on not causing issues than on expressing what you feel. And that's not growth, that's conditioning. So the shift here is not about never apologizing again. It's about becoming aware of why you're doing it. Are you apologizing because you did something wrong? Or because it feels like the only way to keep things stable? Because those are not the same. And once you start noticing that difference, something changes. You pause, you think, and sometimes you don't apologize. Not to create conflict, but to stop taking responsibility for something that isn't yours. And that's how you begin to take your space back. At some point, you stopped fully feeling. Not because your emotions disappeared, but because you stopped trusting them. Every time you felt something strong, you questioned it. Every time something bothered you, you minimized it. Every time you reacted, you wondered if it was too much. And slowly, you created distance. Distance between what you feel and what you allow yourself to express. And that's what disconnected you from yourself. Because emotions are not just reactions, they're signals. They tell you when something feels safe, when something feels wrong, when something matters. But when those signals are constantly questioned, they start to fade. You feel less certain, less clear, less connected to what's happening inside you. And instead, you start operating from logic, trying to make everything make sense, trying to justify your feelings before even allowing them, But you don't need to justify what you feel. You need to understand it. And that's the shift. Instead of asking, "Is this valid?" you start asking, "What is this telling me?" Because your emotions are not the problem, they're information. And when you reconnect with them, you reconnect with your internal guidance. You stop needing constant reassurance. You stop second-guessing every reaction. You stop filtering everything through doubt. And that brings clarity. Not because everything becomes easy, but because you're no longer disconnected from yourself. You feel and you trust that feeling enough to pay attention to it, and that's where your direction comes back. At some point, you started feeling like everything you do needs a justification, not just big decisions, simple things. What you meant, why you said something, why you reacted the way you did. And it's not because you want to explain, it's because you feel like you have to. Like if you don't, it might be misunderstood. It might turn into something bigger. It might create tension you don't want to deal with. So you explain in advance, you add details, you clarify intentions, you try to make everything as clear as possible. So there's no space for misinterpretation. But here's what that creates. A dynamic where you're always proving something. Proving that you're not wrong. Proving that you didn't mean harm. Proving that your actions make sense. And that's exhausting because now you're not just living your life. You're constantly defending it. And over time, that changes your behavior. You think more before speaking. You adjust your words. You structure your communication to avoid being questioned. But here's the truth. You don't need to explain normal behavior. You don't need to justify your feelings. You don't need to provide constant context just to be understood. Because in a healthy dynamic, you are not assumed to be wrong. You are not constantly questioned. You are not required to prove your intentions. So the shift here is simple. You stop over-explaining, not to create distance, but to stop reinforcing a dynamic where you always have to defend yourself. You say what you mean, you express what you feel, and you allow it to exist, without adding layers of justification. And at first, it feels uncomfortable, because you're breaking a pattern. But that discomfort is what brings your autonomy back. At some point, everything starts to make sense. Not because something new happened, but because you finally step back and see what's been repeating. The same confusion, the same conversations, the same way things get turned around, different situations, but the same outcome. You express something and end up apologizing. You remember something and start doubting it. You feel something and end up questioning yourself. And when you look at it one by one, it feels isolated, explainable, justifiable, something you can work through. But when you connect the dots, it becomes a pattern. And that changes everything because now, it's no longer about one moment. It's about a dynamic, a way of interacting that consistently leads you to the same place. Doubt, guilt, confusion, and the moment you see that clearly, you stop taking it personally. You stop asking, "What did I do wrong?" And you start asking, "Why does this keep happening the same way?" Because it's not random, it's structured. And once you recognize the pattern, you gain something you didn't have before. Clarity. You stop reacting to individual situations. You stop trying to fix each moment. You stop explaining yourself over and over again. Because now, you understand the bigger picture. And that awareness is what breaks the cycle. Because you can't change what you don't see. But once you see it, you can no longer pretend it's not there. Gaslighting doesn't destroy you all at once. It changes you slowly. The way you think, the way you feel, the way you see yourself. At first, you're certain. You know what happened. You trust your reactions. You feel grounded in who you are. But over time, that certainty fades. You start questioning your memory. You start doubting your emotions. You start adjusting your behavior just to avoid being wrong again. And that's the shift. you're no longer standing in your own reality. You're negotiating it, trying to make sense of things that were never meant to be clear. And the most dangerous part is this: you don't notice how much you've changed because it happens gradually, through small moments, through repeated patterns, through subtle doubt. That builds over time until one day, you don't feel like yourself anymore. You feel uncertain, careful, disconnected from the clarity you used to have, and that's when you need to pause, not to analyze more, but to recognize something simple. This is not who you are. This is who you became inside this dynamic, and that means something important. It can change, because the moment you start trusting yourself again, the moment you stop explaining, the moment you stop taking responsibility for what isn't yours, something shifts. The confusion starts to fade. The doubt starts to lose strength. The dynamic stops having the same effect. Because gaslighting only works when you no longer trust yourself. And the moment you do, it begins to lose its power. The moment you start trusting yourself again, everything changes. Not outside, inside. Because you're no longer waiting for someone else to define what's real. You're no longer checking your feelings before accepting them. You're no longer rewriting your own experience to make it fit someone else's version. You feel something, and you allow it. You notice something, and you trust it. You react, and you don't immediately question if you were wrong. And that creates a shift. You become clearer, more grounded, more aligned with yourself. And suddenly, things that once confused you don't have the same effect, the same words, the same reactions, the same attempts to turn things around. But now, you see it. You recognize the pattern. You understand what's happening. You no longer internalize it the same way. And that changes your position completely. Because now, you're not trying to fix the situation. You're observing it. And when you observe something clearly, you stop getting pulled into it. You stop over-explaining. You stop over-apologizing. You stop trying to prove that you're not the problem because you already know. And that certainty is what breaks the dynamic. Not arguments, not confrontation, not convincing the other person. Clarity. Because the moment you stop doubting yourself, you stop participating in the confusion. And without your doubt, gaslighting has nothing to hold on to. You don't need one big reason to leave something that slowly made you lose yourself. You don't need proof that everyone would understand. You don't need a situation that looks serious enough from the outside, because what you feel is already enough. If you feel confused more than you feel at peace, if you feel guilty more than you feel understood, if you feel like you're constantly questioning yourself just to keep things stable, that matters, even if it's hard to explain, even if part of you still tries to justify it, even if you keep telling yourself it's not that bad, because this is how it works, not through one moment, but through accumulation. Small doubts, repeated confusion, constant self-questioning, until it becomes your normal. And the longer you stay in that, the harder it becomes to recognize who you were before. Because now, this version of you feels familiar. The one who hesitates. The one who questions. The one who apologizes, even when it doesn't make sense. And that's the real risk. Not the relationship itself, but what it slowly turns you into. So the question is not whether this is bad enough. The question is, do I feel like myself here? Because if the answer is no, that's something you can't ignore. And the moment you stop ignoring it, you stop adapting to it, and that's where everything begins to change. Gaslighting doesn't end when you understand it. It ends when you stop adjusting to it. because awareness alone is not enough. You can see the pattern, you can recognize the behavior, you can even understand how it affected you. But if you continue responding the same way, the dynamic continues. And this is where it becomes real. You stop over-apologizing, even if it creates tension. You stop explaining everything, even if it feels uncomfortable. You stop questioning yourself, even when someone tries to make you doubt. And that changes everything, because now you're no longer participating in the confusion. You're no longer feeding the dynamic with your doubt. And at first, it feels unfamiliar because you were used to adapting, used to softening, used to adjusting, used to making things easier, even when it cost you something. But this is different. You're not reacting to keep peace. You're responding to protect your clarity, and that's where your power is. Not in changing the other person, but in changing your position inside the situation. Because the moment you stop adjusting, the pattern starts to break. The moment you stop doubting, the manipulation loses strength. And the moment you choose yourself consistently, you no longer feel confused. You no longer feel guilty for everything. You no longer feel like the problem. You feel like yourself again, and that's how it ends. Not when they change, but when you stop losing yourself trying to make it work.